And let us begin. Hello! Welcome to a new episode of Torn Book Club. I am your host, Saruman, aka Josh, and oh my god, there's a whole new background behind me. What's going on? Things are different on the internet. Somebody call the cops! You can calm down. I've just moved to literally another part of the room because, the big leather couch that I was on before has decided it doesn't like me anymore and has caved in. So I have moved over to another couch in another part of the room. That's the reason for the angle change. I hope I didn't distract too many of you too quickly. So welcome to our episode on July 31st with our very first full Batman episode, which I know we've joked about many times in the past, doing an episode about Batman, and finally I have an excuse to do it because we have our book of the month, which is Batman the Killing Joke. And grab the book right here. I chose to do this because this is the month of Comic-Con, and we haven't really done a comic book episode before, and so I figured let's do a Batman one, and it also just happens... that a new animated adaptation of The Killing Joke just came out this past week. So it's kind of appropriate to be talking about this and talking about the new animated version. And I figure while we're at it, what the heck? Let's just talk about Batman in general. So I know our main Batman antagonist, Jan, has not been on the show for a while. I'm hoping that he got the message. I emailed him about what's going on this week, so hopefully he'll come in. If not, hopefully he'll watch the archive and comment there. So let's just dive into it with The Killing Joke. This was a one-off. It was just a one-off standalone that was written in... Let me check the copyright date here. It was originally written in 1988 by Alan Moore and drawn by Brian Bolland. And this was essentially supposed to be just a one-off standalone, wasn't going to be part of canon or anything like that, but it became very quickly a fan favorite, and there were elements of it that did become canon later on. So the main story in The Killing Joke is the Joker has escaped from Arkham Asylum, as he does all the time, and he has... done some very dastardly things, this time going in a very extreme route, primarily to prove to both Batman and Commissioner Gordon that all it takes is one bad day to turn people into him. And so from that we get a bit of an origin story for the Joker, and this is the one that is kind of considered to be the official origin story for the Joker, where he's a failed stand-up comedian who is living in a studio apartment in the bad part of town with his pregnant wife. He's desperate to find money, and so he signs on with a group of criminals because they want to break into a company where he used to work, the Ace Chemical Factory, I believe. No, it's not the Ace Chemical Factory, is it? It is a chemical factory, and they want to get through it to a company next door that has lots and lots of money, and rob it that way. And so they want to use him to get all the inside information they need to get through the chemical company. And the arrangement they have with him is they're going to put him in disguise in the costume of this caped villain called the Red Hood. And he's going to pretend to be their leader as they go through and commit their robbery, and he'll get a nice payout, and he won't have to worry about finances with his wife ever again. So, as they're arranging this, he gets the Joker, the guy who's going to eventually become the Joker, gets word that his wife has had an accident and has died, and the baby too. And so he sort of says, well, if I don't have them, then there's really no point in me committing this crime, because I was really only doing it for them in the first place. And the criminals say, oh, you're in too deep now, you got to go through with it. So he goes with them. He puts on the Red Hood costume and leads them into the chemical factory. As Aravandi saying, it's never good for people with issues to work with chemicals in these comics. They're going to fall into vats of toxic waste and turn into supervillains. That's quite true. Although I wouldn't say at the time the Joker had any real mental issues. He was just a desperate man trying to do right by his family. But they go into the chemical factory, and of course security is there, even though he thought that he was going to there wasn't going to be any security. Security calls the cops. Batman follows the cops there, and Batman then has a confrontation with the Joker, or at this point he's the Red Hood. The Red Hood in the comic escapes by literally jumping off of a catwalk into a vat of chemicals. And so he goes through the vat of chemicals, swims out through the sewers, and emerges, takes off the mask of the Red Hood, and he has become the Joker. And that's the origin story for the Joker in this, and that's kind of essentially the origin story that most people take to be the true Joker origin story, even though even in this book he says, oh, I don't really remember it all that well. In fact, and he jokes saying, I kind of like having my history being multiple choice. And beyond that, like we have in The Dark Knight with the Joker constantly giving... The Joker is constantly giving different origin stories for himself. So it's the true origin story of the Joker is always something that's kind of considered in flux, but this one is considered by most to be how the Joker truly came to be, and we see that sort of in movies and in animated series and all that. And then we get into, this is all happening sort of sporadically throughout the main story, which is the Joker has escaped Arkham Asylum. He breaks into Barbara Gordon's apartment. Barbara Gordon is the daughter of Commissioner Gordon, who also masquerades as Batgirl. The Joker bursts in when Commissioner Gordon is visiting with his daughter. He shoots Barbara, giving her a spinal injury, and then kidnaps Commissioner Gordon. And when the cops find her, they say that she is in a state of undress, and they take her to the hospital. She's got a spinal injury and she's never going to walk again. Batman finds out what happens and goes to confront the Joker. And it's here the Joker is basically brutalizing and humiliating and traumatizing Commissioner Gordon. He's got all of these crazy circus freaks with him. They've taken over an abandoned amusement park because that's sort of the Joker's MO. And he strips Commissioner Gordon naked, puts him on a carnival ride, and puts him through this horrible gauntlet of all these images of his daughter naked and bleeding and traumatized, and basically with the intent of driving Commissioner Gordon crazy to prove to Batman that all you need is one bad day to completely lose your humanity. And so Batman finally comes, and he and the Joker have have a showdown. But when Batman also rescues Commissioner Gordon, Commissioner Gordon says to him, "I want the Joker brought in by the book. I want to prove to him that he's wrong." And so Batman has his confrontation with the Joker, and the Joker basically, it's not really a physical altercation, but they do have that, but it's more of a psychological one, with the Joker trying to get at Batman because he doesn't know who he is. Aside from Batman, he doesn't know that he's Bruce Wayne, but he's also sort of taunting him and saying, "I know you had a bad day. I know that something happened in your life to cause this, to cause you to become Batman." And finally, in the end, Batman beats up Joker enough that he's no longer a threat to him. And then he says, "I'm going to bring you in by the book, just like Commissioner Gordon wanted, because we're going to prove to you that this one bad day theory that you have doesn't hold water, and there are good people who have been through bad stuff and who come out the other side completely okay. You are the only one who didn't." What's Aravandi saying here? "I think a while back I had read an article about a controversial cover someone had made for this graphic novel that actually showed the Joker taking a picture of Gordon's daughter all beat up and stuff. It was pretty disturbing and there were complaints about it." That could be. The typical cover that we have for it here is just this image of the Joker taking a picture. And there isn't really much beyond that. You don't see what he's taking a picture of. And so anyway, it ends with Batman about to bring the Joker back in, and the Joker basically tells him essentially a pretty lame joke. And from there, the Joker starts laughing, and Batman starts laughing, and it ends kind of ambiguously with a couple frames of what looks like Batman going in to strangle the Joker. And so you're kind of left with this ambiguous ending of, did Batman bring the Joker in, or did this finally push Batman too far and actually kill him? Because one of the things that Batman struggles with in this story is knowing that at some point or another, he and the Joker, they've been dancing around each other for so long, they've been constantly having this cat and mouse fight with each other, and it's going to get to the point where one of them is going to have to kill the other one. And so the story ends with this sort of ambiguous ending that maybe Batman finally did cross the line and kill the Joker. I do seem to remember everybody's in the chat is talking about this controversial cover of the Joker taking a picture of a bloodied Barbara Gordon. Marvels was asking if the cover was removed. Probably. I would imagine, I haven't seen that cover, but I would imagine that not only would it be a very grotesque image, but it would also be a pretty big spoiler. Even though most people really know about that moment, because this was one of the things, even though this was supposed to be a standalone story that wasn't part of the wider Batman canon, DC Comics did make Barbara's spinal injury canon, and she was confined to a wheelchair and transformed from Batgirl into Oracle, who was pretty much like the person who is constantly feeding Batman information as he's out in the field. She's doing all the research. She's this computer genius, and she's been Oracle for a very long time. I heard that in the rebooted comic books that just started up not too long ago, she is now back to being Batgirl. She's no longer Oracle. The spinal injury never happened. Which I'm okay with and not okay with at the same time, because while I like her as Batgirl, there was something really cool about Oracle that I always enjoyed. And yeah. So that's essentially the story of The Killing Joke. Siobhan is saying, I think the Joker's biggest mistake was to give up his day job before trying to make it as a comedian. And with that, Siobhan, I totally agree. I used to do stand-up comedy, and I was not about to give up my day job for it. Not in a million years. Like, unless you are a super... Marples is asking what was his day job. His day job was actually working at the chemical plant that he ended up falling into the vat in, because he knew all the he knew the layout, he knew the security, which is why the gangsters hired him to break into there in the first place. So yeah, like I used to be a stand-up for probably a good year, and I would just do it on the side, but you don't make money as a stand-up comedian unless you are like top tier comedian, like your Sarah Silvermans, your Louis C.K.'s, people like that. Those are the people who make money. Everybody else you do not make money at that job. So yeah. So then the big thing this past week was the premiere at San Diego Comic-Con of the animated version of The Killing Joke. And this was a highly anticipated animated movie. They were bringing back Kevin Conroy, who was the voice of Batman in the animated series. Mark Hamill was coming back as the Joker. He was the voice of the Joker in the animated series and several movies as well. They were bringing back Bruce Timm, who was the producer of the animated series. This is like the dream team of the Batman animated universe, and they were coming back to finally do an R-rated animated adaptation of this generally beloved Batman story. Siobhan saw my stand-up act on YouTube. Wow, I'm flattered. Thank you for looking that up. I'm flattered and terrified. That was a long time ago, and I was kind of just okay at it. But I don't want to get into my whole dalliances with stand-up comedy. So anyway, this animated version of The Killing Joke came out, and I saw it, and I have to say, I was really, really, really disappointed in it. Primarily because it has an entire first act that isn't in the comic book altogether, which generally I don't mind. The Killing Joke is itself a very short story, and if you want to get it to a feature-length movie, you're going to have to pad it out a bit. And I'm okay with that on principle. How they did it, however, I didn't like at all. It has an entire first act that is mostly about Batgirl. And I understand wanting to do that to try to give her a little bit more of a character arc before Joker comes in and shoots her. But what they did with her, oh my god. The whole first act deals with Batgirl and Batman tracking down this renegade mafia guy. He's the son of the big boss, but he's also fairly psychotic, and he wants to he's sort of going off on his own, and Batman and Batgirl are trying to hunt him down. Meanwhile, this guy sort of develops this fairly psychotic crush on Batgirl, and he's trying to send her on this wild goose chase. Batman is telling her that she's too close to this. She could be compromised. She needs to stay out of this one. He'll take care of it. She doesn't want to hear that, and it finally ends in this confrontation with the guy. They arrest him, they get him, and then Batman and Batgirl hook up. And it was, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, what is happening here? The two of them, they start making out. She takes off her cowl and top, and then the camera pans away, and you can sort of guess what happens after that. And I'm like, no, this is Batman and Batgirl. That's like having sex with your daughter. Ew. Like, and so after that, it sort of devolves into Batman doesn't want to talk to her. He's not returning any of her calls. She's getting more and more upset that he's not returning her calls. And I'm like, when did Batman become a rom-com? This is terrible. What happened here? And then from there, it eventually switches gears and goes into the adaptation of The Killing Joke, which at this point just feels like a complete and utter tonal shift. And yeah, like, the one thing that I did like was that it ended with a little stinger of Barbara in a wheelchair entering a computer room and firing up her computers and essentially becoming Oracle. Now, that's something we don't get in this story because that's something that happened later on in the comics after the producers at DC decided to run with her spinal injury and make that canon. So it was nice to see that little origin of Oracle happen in the Killing Joke. But then when we get into the actual adaptation of The Killing Joke proper, I mean, Kevin Conroy was great, Mark Hamill was great, but it just felt like an adaptation by the numbers. Like, this was my issue with the big 2-part animated version of The Dark Knight Returns, was that it was so slavishly faithful to the source material that it doesn't bring anything new to it, and it doesn't feel like there's any passion to it. What's Temple saying here? You don't have to make Batgirl a love interest for Batman in order to make her a compelling character. I completely agree. And in fact, I would say it actually took away from both of their characters, because everything that happens between them after that moment just feels incredibly out of character for both of them. There was nothing I felt really like bad about the stuff that is actually from the book that they adapted. It just didn't strike me as overwhelmingly good. And also the ending is not as ambiguous as it is in the comic book. Now, I kind of like the ambiguity of the ending in the comic because you don't know if Batman is gonna go in and actually kill the Joker this time, or if he's gonna go in and grab him and cuff him and take him back out to Commissioner Gordon. It's left sort of open. In the movie, they try to do that, but it doesn't land as well, because the way it works in the movie is Joker tells his lame joke, and then he starts laughing, and then Batman starts laughing, and they start laughing together and getting louder and louder and louder, and then the Joker's laugh dies out, and Batman keeps laughing, and it starts to sound crazier and crazier until it finally fades out. And it really felt like, okay, Batman is just sort of getting out everything he needs to get out, but then he's gonna take the Joker and bring him back to Commissioner Gordon. So it was kind of left like a lot less ambiguous, and for the life of me, I can't really see how you could adapt that well to a movie medium, because in a comic book, like because it's a comic book and it has panels and doesn't have motion and doesn't have fades and transitions, you can sort of play with it a bit more and leave stuff more ambiguous. So I'm not really sure how well you could you could translate that to a movie. So I'm kind of willing to give him a pass on that, but everything else, yeah, this was a very disappointing movie, and after all the hype that they put behind this, because this was really like what people what a lot of Batman fans were really looking forward to. This was something we had wanted for a really long time, and this is what we got. And yeah, it was really disappointing. So yeah, that's essentially Batman: The Killing Joke. It's not a very long story, so there's not a whole lot to talk about with it. It's a very controversial story. It's a very it. This is a time. This came out in a time when comic book stories were sort of going along a very set path, and so when something would come out that had shock value just for the sake of shock value, which I really do believe The Killing Joke was, it tends to resonate more with the audiences just because it was so different and so daring. And it was written by Alan Moore, and even he would agree that e- sorry, I missed what Siobhan said here. If Joker's wife's death was a tragedy of his own making, I may have been more convinced by the one bad day angle. That's a fair point. Marvels is saying, I don't get it. Is it a book or a movie? It's both. I was talking about the book first, then I talked about the movie a little bit. So yeah. So Alan Moore, like he admits that this was not his strongest work, and I would have to agree. Like after having read stuff like Watchmen and V for Vendetta, two utterly amazing stories, this one sort of comes out like a little weak, a little like just shock value for the sake of shock value. Marfels is asking, is the movie available on DVD? It will be, I believe, next week. They did some theatrical screenings of it, and it's available on video on demand right now. But yeah, I think next week it officially comes out on DVD and Blu-ray. But yeah, I would not recommend checking it out. It was a really disappointing movie. But yeah, the comic I thought really was just shock value for the sake of shock value, and I don't feel like it really added a whole lot to either the character of Batman or the Joker, because like you sort of already know that there is no extreme to which the Joker won't go to prove a point. So having him do this is just sort of like, well, that's what the Joker does. And then leaving it ambiguous with a Batman, like Marvel's is saying, hey, I want to be disappointed too. Hey, that's up to you. I mean, if you want to spend money on it, that I'm not going to say don't. I'm just going to say I would recommend spending your money on something better. And there is our book of the month, which I'll talk about, which I'm hoping will be better. I haven't read it yet. I will find out. But yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. And yeah, I was sort of torn between when it came to doing a comic book for this month. I was torn between doing this or Watchmen, both by Alan Moore, and Watchmen is one of my favorite comic book stories. But it's also one that I've read several times, and The Killing Joke was one that I had never read before. So I thought, okay, let's do that one. Let's sort of keep on the theme of books Josh hasn't read but should have at this point. Our book of the month this for next month is not only a book Josh hasn't read, it's a book nobody has read yet because it only just came out today. So yeah, The Killing Joke, I'll just leave it with, I thought the comic was interesting. I thought the movie was truly disappointing. Temple saying, in a way, Batman and Joker are two sides of the same coin. Trauma can make you do some crazy things, and frankly, it's just as nutty to be a non-powered superhero as it is to be a supervillain. That's fairly true, and I mean, Lord knows they've exploited that whole angle in Batman several times. In the movies, in the comic books, in the animated series, they've done it many, many times, and it is fairly true. Like, I mean, Batman definitely, Bruce Wayne suffered a major trauma, as did the Joker, and they handled it very differently. Siobhan is asking a very loaded question. What's the best Batman book to read? I'd have to think about that one. One of the ones I really liked, and I'm sure it probably doesn't hold up as it did when I first read it, was Nightfall. And this is a series that introduced two characters. It introduced Bane, and it introduced Azrael. And this was the big series where Bane breaks Batman's back, and while Batman is recuperating, this other guy, Azrael, takes over as Batman and basically ruins his good name. So yeah, I read that one when it first came out, and I was really enthralled by it, but something tells me that one probably doesn't hold up as well today as it probably did before. A couple other good ones that I think do hold up are Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Returns, not The Dark Knight Rises. That's a movie, and that's not that good. Oh, if only Jan were here to to put me in my place for that one. The Dark Knight Returns is good. It's a little dated, but it kind of still works. It works much better than the animated version of it does, because they did a 2-part animated movie based on The Dark Knight Returns. And again, it's one of those, I feel like it was so slavishly faithful to the source material that it didn't really bring anything new or interesting to it. And also, while I love the guy, Peter Weller was the voice of Batman in Dark Knight Returns. And Peter Weller, I love you, but you're no Batman. Yeah, you're a great RoboCop, you're a great Buckaroo Banzai, but you're no Batman. So yeah, I guess I would like to talk a little bit about like all the different versions of Batman we've seen, because like for me, I was sort of a casual Bat fan for most of my childhood. Like I grew up watching the Adam West series, which was super cheesy, and to a little kid, I'm like, ooh, I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Never really took him seriously. And then 1989 came around, and we got the Tim Burton Batman movie. And I saw that, and I was absolutely hooked. I became a Bat fan overnight. Like, actually, just from the trailers, I was hooked. Like, I was so into it. I was 12 years old at the time, and had my mom drag me. I dragged my mom with me to a midnight preview screening of it, which was a very rare thing back in '89. But I went to that. I was super excited. I remember the projector actually went out right after the right after the opening credits, and a riot almost ensued. Luckily, they got the projector working again pretty quickly. But yeah, there was there was a moment where it almost got ugly. But it was a great experience. I was 100% into Batman at that point. I've seen all the Batman movies, even the terrible ones like Batman and Robin. Aravandi saying here, I know the first Lego Batman video game, the first Christian Bale Batman movie, and Adam West Batman. Okay. I loved Lego Batman in the Lego movie. I'm looking forward to the Lego Batman movie. What is this? In the newer Lego Batman, there's an Adam West in every level that you can rescue in the video game. That's awesome. I haven't played the Lego Batman game. I played all of the Arkham games. Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, and Arkham Knight. And I liked all of them except Arkham Origins was just kind of okay. Like, you could sort of tell it wasn't done by the same team. Darkness, no parents, super rich, kind of makes it better. Uh, okay, Marples is saying, I don't get why some people say that Michael Keaton is the best Batman. Well, I think at least for me, Michael Keaton was the first dark Batman we ever saw, and it really sort of resonated with us. And Marvel says, to me, all Batmans are different and good enough. I would agree to a certain point, except for George Clooney. He was a pretty terrible Batman. For me, my favorite Batman is actually Kevin Conroy, who plays the voice of Batman in the animated series. What I like about him is that he really brings a true difference of character to both Batman and Bruce Wayne, and I love the way he transitions between the two of them, and how they're two almost completely different characters. No, Marvel's. I'm not saying Keaton is the darkest. I'm saying he was our first exposure to a dark Batman on any sort of TV or movie screen. Christian Bale didn't come until about 10 years later. I like Christian Bale. I enjoyed Batman Begins. I enjoyed The Dark Knight. Didn't really care for The Dark Knight Rises. I felt it was sort of weak in comparison to the other two. But I mean, I really liked Christian Bale. It didn't really feel like it didn't feel like a suitable conclusion to that trilogy. And I realized that there were reasons behind that because of the death of Heath Ledger, and clearly the Joker was going to play a big part in this third chapter, and they had to change that very quickly. Temple saying, I think the subject of who played Batman the best is not so different from the discussion over who played James Bond. And that's very true. Like, there are some, I mean, you can sort of go Keaton or you can go Bale, and really I can see arguments for and against both. Val Kilmer, I thought was really cheesy. George Clooney, he didn't care. Marvel's saying, I think Christopher Nolan is the one who made me respect Batman. I totally get that. And Aravati saying, I think Lego Batman played Batman the best. Yes, for sure. And Amy saying the Doctor, as to like who played it best. The Doctor, who played the best James Bond, who played the best Batman. There's enough actors playing them to sort of have discussions over who played them the best, and even it goes with the Joker, because we have Jack Nicholson playing the Joker in the Burton Batman. We have Heath Ledger playing him in The Dark Knight. We have Mark Hamill playing him in the animated series, and I know there are people out there who sort of will say, like, well, the animated series doesn't count as part of this whole pantheon because it never had a theatrical movie. And that's where I have to say, no, it actually did have a theatrical movie, and it's probably my all-time favorite Batman theatrical movie, and that's Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And so, I don't know how many of you have seen Mask of the Phantasm, but this was the one theatrically released Batman animated movie, and I absolutely love this movie because it does some of the things that you can and should do in a Batman movie, but very few ever really do. What I liked about Mask of the Phantasm is that when you look at all of the other Batman movies, the end goal for the villain is usually one of two things. They either want to destroy Gotham City or they want to control Gotham City. And in this one, the villain doesn't want to do that. I kind of like sort of bringing the scope down a little bit. The main plot of Mask of the Phantasm is there is this mysterious person who is systematically murdering lots of different mob bosses, and they were never able to really get a good look at him. But because he's so dark and shrouded in shadows, a lot of people are assuming that it's Batman. That Batman has finally snapped, and now he's finally starting to kill all the mob bosses. So Batman finds himself with the mob after him. He finds himself with the cops after him. Meanwhile, he's trying to figure out who this person is who is masquerading as him. And it turns out framing Batman for these murders is not really what the Phantasm wanted. It was just sort of a happy accident. But it also dives into a plot line that we sort of see in The Dark Knight, which is the mob starts to get more desperate to protect themselves, and so they turn to the Joker to help them. And the Joker agrees, but then, of course, wants to do his own thing, which is far more deadly and far more sinister. But then we also start to have these flashbacks to a totally different time in Bruce Wayne's life. When we get Bruce Wayne flashbacks, they're usually about when his parents got killed, and very little beyond that. Maybe a little bit of his training, a little bit of him growing up, but the flashbacks that we get in Mask of the Phantasm actually deal with him meeting a girl and falling in love and starting to question whether or not he really wants to he really wants to continue on this path he's chosen for himself to become Batman. And there's this fantastic scene with him at his parents' grave where he basically says, "I never counted on being happy." And that was an angle of Bruce Wayne that we never saw before, where like he actually did really question whether or not this was what he was supposed to do, and maybe there was something better that he could strive for. Ultimately, that didn't pan out, but it was interesting seeing that doubt, which you never really see with Bruce Wayne. Marfels is saying, I was wondering if there are any Batman flashes as a teenager. Yeah, kind of, sort of. There are some here and there, but the one in Mask of the Phantasm, like this was a younger Bruce Wayne. He's not a teenager. He's older. This is after he's gone through some training and he's starting to develop his Batman persona. Like he's going around the city sort of dressed up in like a generic sort of ninja bank robberish gear. Kind of like what we see in the beginning of Batman Begins. So it's around that point that he meets this girl and he starts to doubt things, and I don't want to spoil too much with it if you haven't seen it, but that flashback actually does play into the final story, the final climax of the main story. But what I like about Mask of the Phantasm is you have this you have a villain who is not looking to destroy or control Gotham, but has a very specific agenda in mind. You have a flashback to something very different and very unique with Bruce Wayne, and then you also have Bruce Wayne and Batman doing something that you rarely ever see him do in Batman movies, which is be a detective. There are lots of different nicknames for Batman. You have Caped Crusader, Dark Knight, stuff like that. But another nickname that Batman goes by is the world's greatest detective. And very rarely in movies do we see Batman actually being a detective. And most of Mask of the Phantasm, we're seeing Batman and Bruce and Alfred trying to figure out who or what this phantasm is, what the phantasm's patterns are, who it's going after, why it's going after them. They don't really know anything about him, so he has to really play detective. And that's something I really wish we would see more in these Batman movies. But, we'll see. I liked Ben Affleck in Batman vs. Superman, even though I thought the movie itself was pretty terrible. I like him. I'm looking forward to seeing his standalone movie. Amy's saying, I'd like to see Batman versus Sherlock in a detective showdown. I kind of feel like Sherlock would win that because while Batman is a good detective, nobody beats Sherlock. And Aravandi's saying, I'd like to see more Batman movies with him being more detective-like. And that's kind of what I'm hoping we'll get with the standalone Batman movie that Ben Affleck's going to be doing. Just because we see a bit more of him in detective mode in Batman versus Superman. So yeah, that's I'm looking forward to that. And Amy's saying, I think that's why it was called Detective Comics. Detective Comics was Batman was introduced in Detective Comics. Yes. I don't believe that's what DC stands for. I believe DC is something else. I could be wrong. But yes, there was a Detective Comics back in the day, and that's how Batman was introduced to everybody. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is what DC stands for. I really don't know. I haven't looked it up. So yeah. I would love to see more of Batman being a detective. Siobhan is saying Sherlock would take one glance at Batman and immediately call him Bruce. Yep. You know what? I totally agree with you, Siobhan. He definitely would. Um, yeah, I really don't know what DC stands for. I'm sure once I post this on YouTube, there will probably be somebody in. Okay, so Amy's looking it up on Wikipedia. The initials DC came from the company's popular series Detective Comics, which featured Batman's debut and subsequently became part of the company's name. Okay, well then there you go. DC does stand for Detective Comics. Um, uh, so, uh, so yeah, I think like I was not a huge fan of The Killing Joke, either the comic or the movie. I thought the comic was okay. Probably because I came to it so late, it didn't resonate with me the way it probably would have back in '88. Um, but yeah. So moving on, I guess you probably want to know what our book of the month for August is going to be, and Aravandi has guessed. She hasn't said, but I'm willing to bet you guessed right. Um, our book of the month for August is the book that just came out today, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Yes, after all this time, we are finally getting a new Harry Potter story that takes place 19 years later. Now, this is not a novel per se, it's actually the rehearsal edition of the script. Um, that is, I believe, just opened in I believe it just opened in London. I have a couple friends who got to see it in previews and they loved it. Um, so hopefully I'll be able to get them on the show next month. We'll see. I'm gonna reach out to them. Temple is book club is a couple days before I move to Vermont. You're moving to Vermont? That's a heck of a move. Uh, Good luck. Uh, we'll miss you, and yeah, good luck. Good luck with the move, and I hope it works out well for you. Um, Hopefully you'll be able to join us again once you're settled in. So yeah, um, yeah. This is actually Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was this is probably the first time I didn't go to a midnight Harry Potter book release since Prisoner of Azkaban. I started going to the midnight book releases around Goblet of Fire, and have gone to every one except this one because last night I was really really tired and couldn't bring myself to do it. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm hoping it's good. I mean, I know that it's a story that J.K. Rowling put together, even though I believe the script was written by somebody else. Um, but yeah, we're going back to the Wizarding World, so that's pretty exciting. And yeah, also last month I had told all of you that I was in a contest for audio narration called Evil Idol. Well, good news, I made it into round two. So I'll be posting another entry when that goes up. It starts. The second round actually starts tomorrow. Um, I'll be sure to post and let you all know when my next entry goes live, because I'll need the votes again. I don't really have any illusions that I'll make it into round 3. But, if I do, great. If not, it was a good run. There are now 50 entries in round 2, and everybody was ranked. I came in at number 23, so that's not bad. Marvel is saying the Cursed Child is about Harry Potter and the gang being adults, right? Yes, it is. This is taking place 19 years after the events in Deathly Hallows. So it's going to be interesting. Because it's going to be like around that time that the epilogue of Deathly Hallows takes place. It should be I didn't care for the epilogue in Deathly Hallows just because it didn't go anywhere. It didn't really do anything. This, however, is a full story, so I'm assuming it goes somewhere and does something. So I'm looking forward to reading it and seeing what that is. In fact, I'll probably be running out to the bookstore as soon as I'm done with the show today to pick up a copy. Oh. And Marvels is saying I've only seen the movies and only read the last book. I really enjoyed the books. I enjoyed the movies too. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what is in store for us now in the Wizarding world. So yeah. We'll be doing this again next month. Our discussion of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child will be on August 28th. So yeah, I will see you all then, and yeah, thank you for joining me for this Batman-centric episode. I'm sorry that Jan wasn't able to make it here for this. I will see you all next month for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And everybody have a great month. See you on August 28th. And there we go. Yeah. Take care. Looking forward to going back to the Wizarding world. Oh yeah, I should say yes. I've taken the Sorting Hat quizzes too, and I am a Gryffindor. So long, everybody. See you next month, and never stop reading.